Hi everybody, my name is Alex Tyrrell. I'm the leader of the Green Party of Quebec, and today we're outside the Montreal Detention Center, also known as the Bordeaux Jail. And I've come here today to talk about the Green Party of Quebec's platform with respect to public safety and with respect to detention conditions here in Quebec. So it's not a secret that in Quebec prisons the conditions are really difficult for people. We've had a lot of problems with overcrowding, with violence, with sexual assaults, and with lack of access also to education and mental health care services. There's a huge suicide rate in prisons. Actually, it's quite a bit higher in Quebec prisons than it is in Ontario, despite the fact that there's 50% more prisoners in Ontario. And we've heard people talking about this jail behind us having conditions that are really unsanitary, with urine all over the floor. People are put in cells without pillows, without blankets, with people screaming all night, not able to sleep, and not able to have access to the most basic human rights that a lot of us here in Quebec take for granted. And of course, we need to improve the conditions of prisoners in jails here in Quebec, and we need to make it so that when people go to prison, that they can come out as more productive members of society, that they can be rehabilitated. Right now, our prison system is based on punishment and based on revenge for crimes that have been committed. And of course, there are people who have committed violent and horrible crimes that are not pardonable, that have to face the consequences of their actions. But that being said, the entire population of Quebec has an interest in having people be rehabilitated in prison rather than coming out of prison and falling back into crime and back into violence and ending up being recidivists and coming back to prison shortly after. Each time a crime is committed, there's a cost to society, and anything that we can do to prevent crime is something that's very important. And one of the things that we can do is that when people commit their crimes, to continue treating them as human beings, to continue investing in them as human beings so that they can come out of prison rehabilitated and ready to contribute in a more positive manner to society. There's also the issue of solitary confinement. Now, people are regularly put in solitary confinement for extended periods of time. Some of the times these people are put into solitary confinement because they've been violent with other prisoners. Other times they are voluntarily in solitary confinement because they're afraid of being beaten up by other prisoners. And I think that is something that is really unfortunate. We should not be putting people in solitary confinement for more than 5 days at a time. Solitary confinement has devastating impacts on the mental health of the people that are in it. Does not really correct the problems, is more of a punishment than a tool to correct certain behaviors. And we should really be doing everything to try and rehabilitate people rather than punish them. I understand that speaking up for incarcerated individuals is maybe not the most popular thing to do for politicians, and that's one of the reasons that we have these subhuman conditions in our jails, is that nobody wants to speak up for human rights of people who have committed crimes. And I think that it is important because we need to reduce criminality. We need to treat every member of the society as a human being, whether they've committed a crime or not. And I'm not somebody who would say, well, look, we should abolish all prisons, nobody should be incarcerated. But there are things that we can do much better. For example, countries like Norway have these alternatives to prisons where people they're detained, they're forced to stay at certain places, but they're given access to education, to health care, to group therapy, and they're not locked up in cages. So I think that Quebec needs to invest in those alternative forms of incarceration as a way to rehabilitate people rather than punishing them. And there's so much that we can do in Quebec to make sure that people are better off. And it's important also to acknowledge that a lot of the people who end up in prison, have been victims themselves of childhood abuse, have been, perhaps pulled into gangs, have, fallen into crime because they don't have skills or knowledge to do anything else. or because the opportunities are not there for them. So I think that it's easy for people on the outside to judge those who are in there and say we shouldn't have committed the crimes and that sort of thing, but not everybody has an equal opportunity in our society, and it's important to take that into account. And it's important to realize that just because somebody was in a gang or committed a violent crime, it doesn't mean that they don't have any potential to contribute positively to society, especially if society would take better care of them while they're serving their time. So that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening. It's an important issue for Quebec, the Green Party of Quebec. We support human rights across the board, whether it be for prisoners or for everybody else. Everybody deserves basic human dignity, and that's what we came here to say today. Thank you.